Leadership development exists because none of us are perfect, fully realized people. We all have room for growth in our lives and we need help along the way. Hi, and welcome to Developing Imperfect Leaders.
Because the last time I checked, we're not Jesus.
This podcast is a project of the Leadership Development Institute at Hope Community Church, intended to help you explore and grow your leadership skills for service both inside and outside the church. I'm your host, Paul Stiver, and I'm joined by my co-hosts and fellow LDI staff team members, Kaelyn Larson.
Hello.
And Naty Severson.
Hi.
It is so good to see you guys yet again back in the studio. How are you guys doing? I'd love to, what we always do is kick off with some fun facts. Okay, what is a fun fact about you?
I'm so excited for this because with this new studio arrangement, we can see each other's notes a little bit, and Kaelyn's is intriguing. 2 words, 2 simple words.
So one of my fun facts is in the summertime, I thoroughly enjoy getting into a hot car.
In the summer?
Yes.
That's why it says hot cars. That
Yes.
finally makes
That's
sense.
not what I thought hot cars meant.
I just I don't know why, but it's something about getting into a warm, toasty car. Just it just feels so good. And I look forward to that.
What about leather seats?
Oh, they
Get
burn your
smoked.
legs.
Oh, I guess we have leather seats. I've never thought about it because I just am thoroughly enjoying how warm the car is.
All right.
And then once we start driving, I roll down the windows. But it's that initial 30 seconds. I'm oh, it's so nice and warm in here.
Oof.
It's got to be pretty rare, but I bet people do have it.
I know
gonna be
people do
somebody
because
else.
I've actually connected with people on this.
Well, please
like
comment.
social media groups.
Please comment on the
It's
podcast.
speaking of social media, right? This is a sidebar, but the heated seats in cars is obviously a little newer technology. I mean, I'm a millennial and it wasn't always around. The heated seats, so nice, incredible.
Oh, yes.
That
I do
is-
it in even 40-degree weather.
There's air-conditioned seats now.
That is also
Okay, and the heated steering wheels.
Yeah.
Oh, that's new. I did not.
Heated mirrors. Have you seen that? The
Mhm.
side mirrors are heated.
a level?
Mhm.
Yeah.
What won't they heat these days? Thank you, heat.
Well, thank you, Minnesota winters. For
So, all right. My fun fact is I have seen one Star Wars movie all the way through. I don't know how fun that is. If you're in we're in a Christian setting most of the time, and it feels like that almost is blasphemy to have only seen one Star Wars movie, especially at our just friends that I have. One that I literally have someone I know that runs an entire podcast dedicated to Star Wars.
What's the lion movie? The lion one?
Is Lion King? Yeah, that's not a Star Wars.
No, the lion where lion is kind of like the Jesus character. What's that one? Narnia.
Oh.
I've never seen those, and
okay.
people look at me like I am maybe a heathen.
Yeah, just what are you
It's
doing?
just maybe on par with who reads their Bible? And I'm I read my Bible.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good.
So
Read your Bible, also watch Narnia.
and Star Wars.
Don't
Apparently.
watch Star
don't
Wars.
watch Star Wars.
No, it's a waste.
It is,
WOT,
yeah.
waste of time. I watched Rogue One. That's the one I saw. And
That's
I feel
one of the better ones.
I actually liked that one.
I feel like now I actually understand what is all the timelines and stuff. But yeah, that's me.
I've thoroughly enjoyed the Baby Yoda one, Mandalorian.
Mm-mm.
But-
Never seen it.
Oh, okay. Sometimes people do yes and to keep conversation going. I love how the direction you went, though.
Don't know him. Never seen him.
I haven't seen that show.
I don't know that person.
End of
I don't know that person very well.
conversation. What other shows haven't you seen, Kaelyn?
Kaelyn, do you want to?
Give us a list. Or Naty to just list shows she likes and then you
Say nope,
say ones
nope. Just keep
that you
saying nope.
don't like. Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Never sat in a car. Don't know it.
Nope.
Don't
Nope.
know.
Never been hot in a car. All right. I'll go.
my goodness.
I'll go.
Switching gears.
Switching gears.
Oh, car reference.
I love hats. Do you have a comment
you?
on that? Do you have a comment?
I had no idea.
I do.
She's never worn
Kaylyn's
that.
gonna be like, hats are awful.
Never worn one.
Never
Don't
worn
know
one. Don't know about hats.
What a hat is.
Yes. If you know me, you know my love of hats. It's like a hug for your head. It just makes you feel safe and confident and comfy. I did count just for the purposes of this podcast.
Oh,
I
gosh.
have 22 baseball caps and 14 beanies. Weirdly, I wear 3 of the beanies.
And you also have your favorite.
Hats.
Yes.
Until they get sweat stained
Yeah.
or something gross, then they have to go to the bottom.
Yeah.
So I just wrote on here, I need to update my look. Apparently, I'm not gonna, but I probably need to.
Right.
You should count how many sweatshirts.
My son, I did once. It was 42 hoodies, but this was years ago. My son is getting married in June, so I'm still trying to figure out how I can work a trucker hat into the look, but I don't know if they're gonna let me. Yeah, so probably not. Right? Is there like a mother of the groom
like
trucker
a picture
hat
without
is,
a hat and with a hat?
I'm not getting away with it. All right. Enough of that.
So this week we're looking at kind of building off a conversation about wise counsel, trusted voices. Who should I listen to? We wanted to think about who should I listen to on social media? That's actually the leading question. So Naty, who should I listen to on social media?
Well, my first response was, I should not be the person that's answering this question because I am not very out there on social media. I don't pay attention to it a lot. So I didn't know if this question was meant to be like more generally, like in concept, who should I listen to? Or like more practically, like these are some great voices out there on social media, because I'm sure there are some really great voices like that Lion movie. But I'm not aware of them. So like for me, it's like I watched a TikTok video on how to clean all my baseball hats, and it worked fantastically. So like in the sense of like helpful, almost how-to-ish, TikTok and YouTube have been very helpful to me. But in terms of like, gosh, who should I listen to? That's just a tricky question, because it means like the word listen. Like, who should I take advice from? Who should I learn things I don't know from? I mean, those are all tricky questions because, my preference would be that we use social media to stay in touch with other people, maybe be exposed to new ideas, different things like that. But then to actually like listen to them in a way that like impacts your heart is interesting, because even as people listen to this podcast, which I realize isn't social media, but it is another form of content and media, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I wouldn't want somebody to listen to this podcast and make all their decisions in isolation. Right. And so then my big thing was like, it's tough for me to see the idea that somebody would take advice from a stranger and like wholesale, that's what I'm doing. Like, I've bought into this idea. I got it, right? So because social media and like things like this, they give us the false impression that we're in community. We sort of start to believe we're in community because we're sharing ideas with maybe like-minded people or something like that, or we've caught on to something and there's other people who agree, and maybe we even dialogue on a messaging board or DMs or whatever. But you're still in isolation. So I think it gives us this false sense of, even watching this video, you might have this like false impression that we know each other, and we just actually don't. And so you just need to have healthy dialogue in order to take advice. There just has to be healthy dialogue. And so I think that's the risk of social media, is making decisions in isolation. It's that idea, and I think we've brought it up on the show, of like, isolation is a bad place to make decisions, because when you're deceived, you're deceived. That's the idea. You don't know you're deceived. You're just deceived. And nobody's ever like gone up and be like, I'm presently deceived, but that's cool because I know it. Like, you're just deceived when you're deceived. Mm-hmm. So, sorry, Kay, what do you think?
No, my initial response was you shouldn't listen to anybody on social media, because they're all paid to influence and advertise. So
somebody pays me to be on social media? That has not happened for me.
Well, like,
just kidding.
Like, I mean, the influencers are like the people that at least like, so to fill out, I was just thinking like, okay, I'm sharing my thought on this of like, you shouldn't listen to anyone. And then I'm like, but there are definitely like, I wonder how like this person that I follow on Instagram is like thinking about this, or like, how do they lay out their day, or how do they like organize their life, or like, what are their organizational hacks. And I'm like, but those Target bins that you are organizing this closet with, you're getting paid to...
Oh, they're getting the Target bins, or they're getting a kickback from Target.
Yeah. Okay. And so then I'm like, no one.
Yeah,
is what I think. Because,
you're looking at it and you're saying like, how can this be authentic? Or like, why should I listen to this? It's interesting because like, then you'd be influenced to buy the Target bins.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, which is, I think, what I'm
like, that looks so clean. I want that for my laundry room.
Right, and then I'll be okay.
And I bought them.
Then I'll be okay.
Well, yeah.
A little bit, right? That's what I
well,
think
and
is.
I'm a little okay because now I like what my like top of the laundry
Yeah.
looks like.
Yeah.
But that didn't solve anything.
Yeah. That's, I think, what's interesting is like we're so easily influenced. I think we'd love to be like, no, I take in all this content and it barely impacts me. It barely, like I'm very much in the chair, discerning, understanding what's right and what's wrong, what's true and what's false, what's life-giving and what's not. But so quickly we're like, no, I need to have this, or I've got to like, this, if I can just organize my laundry room, my life will make sense. Almost, you didn't say that, and
No,
obviously you don't think
I
that,
don't think
but like
yeah.
we get to those kind of places, or we can tend to, which,
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, I'm my brain. If you can probably see the smoke coming out of my ears, if the camera was on me, but like I was just thinking about what you're saying because as soon as you said, so I bought them, and then I was like, well, did it improve your situation? Then it can't be that bad that you got influenced to do it.
No,
but here's
yeah.
the thing: if it put in your head the idea that the appearance of your laundry room is subpar, suddenly, then I'm like, okay, in that lies the problem because I know your house. It's your laundry room's in a basement. No one's ever gonna go in it but you. And it's one thing to like have your place make you feel happy, but I bet you only go in there to change your laundry or get in your freezer. Right. And so if you ever need anything from Kaelyn's freezer, it's right next to the machines. And so it's not bad to get help. Like I was like, oh, it's helpful for me to know how to clean my hats on TikTok.
Yeah.
But TikTok didn't put in my head the fact that my hats were dirty. I knew my hats were dirty, so I went looking for a way to clean my hats.
Yeah.
Right? If I went on TikTok then and it was like, here's all the hats you can get, I suppose that would be and it's telling me then it's telling me my hats, I guess, are inferior and I won't be complete. Or what if somebody, heaven forbid, goes down into your laundry room and judges you for the appearance of what the top of your laundry looks like?
Yeah, I know.
Is that what you were thinking? Is that what it put in your head? Or was it more like it would make me happy?
It was more like, to have this organized would just feel so good.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad thing.
No, it's not bad, but it's like,
It's
but if it puts in your head you're somehow inferior.
Right.
Because your laundry room looks inferior.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, my laundry room's always going to look inferior. It
Is
doesn't even
a
have
laundry room,
sheetrock.
like at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a good, just thinking about this topic and kind of how do we, guard against the ways that we tend to be influenced, especially in an era where we're absorbing so much more content than our brains can handle. It just is factual. Is that a word? Factual?
Yes, definitely.
We're just taking in, it's factually is a word. It actually is a factual. All right, I'm done. But we're taking in so much content right now. And it literally, there's studies that show our brains cannot process the level of especially visual information that we're getting. And so we need to have discernment. And that hits on the quote of the week this week. It comes from a woman named Melissa Kruger, writing for the Gospel Coalition, an article called What Social Media Users Need. And we got a little bit of a long quote here, but she says this: what we spend our time looking at greatly affects what we're thinking about. Everyone knows what it's like to have negative thoughts while online. One woman might be anxious and worried after reading a friend's update on her sick family member. A different woman may feel lonely after seeing a group photo of a social gathering posted online. Another woman might doubt the validity of God's word on a particular subject because a popular influencer has a new view and everyone seems to agree. What we see on social media affects how we think. It also affects how we view others. It's important for each of us to consider, in what ways am I negatively affected by social media? Who invites me toward folly? So often, our thoughts lead us to temptation. Spending time on social media can tempt us toward discontentment, unkind judgments, bitterness, or envy of someone's possessions or accomplishments. She continues, as you think about your own areas of temptation, consider how social media influences your struggle. Discernment is not avoidance of the world. It's the ability to go into the world and embrace the good while avoiding the bad.
It's a great end.
That is good, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a long quote, so like I unpacked it in my notes by kind of chunking it up into 3 sections. And so I'll just start by kind of tossing out. I stopped the quote where it ends with, where she's changing her mind on God's word because a popular influencer has a new idea. And so I'm like, okay, so what Melissa Kruger does here is she kind of sets up like, here's ways I've seen in her experience women specifically influenced by social media. And so I broke it right there. And it's true that social media has an impact on people.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing about it is there's probably some universal truths. Like it's like advertising where it tells us what we don't have, like our promise us is a life. There's going to be life, it's like a beer commercial. You'll suddenly be on a beach if you have a Corona, right? Or whatever,
Nice. Awesome.
right? Can't wait. Or you'll at least feel like you're on a beach. It's not true, but like that's what they're selling is beach life, right? But like the interesting thing about it is it influences us differently. So these same women are seeing these posts, and some things are going to be like, doesn't influence me, and then that one's going to really hit home. So for that gal who feels lonely, every time she sees people interacting, and probably especially people she knows and cares about, and she's like, well, why wasn't I invited? Right? We've all felt that, I think. At least women, we can talk about whether guys feel that, but like, oh, maybe I should have been invited to that thing, or how come they're hanging out and I didn't get an invite to that, or whatever. You can see how it's going to impact us differently, each of us, based on our own uniqueness, but also that will then change over time. So it's kind of this ever-evolving thing where it makes it actually hard to probably pinpoint exactly its influence on us. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on the beginning of the quote that stood out to you.
When I read the beginning of that, I just was thinking how more like when you are going through your feed, how you'll see someone who's sick, and then you'll see a group of friends, and then and how like your brain is just jumping, and you're not actually like you don't stop on this person who has a sick mom because you're already going to the next one. So you like intake it for a minute. Oh, that's too bad. And then go to the next.
So you envision yourself as potentially all these women.
Yeah, you can like, and then how you just like leave social media like a bunch of feelings.
Yeah, right. Like you'd walk away from that. If this was hypothetically you walk away from that session or whatever, scrolling on your phone, feeling a ton of new things, and then just going and interacting with the world in new ways. Like, and maybe trying to like hang out with someone because you felt lonely, or maybe you just don't talk to anyone because you're like, no one wants to talk to me, or who knows other ways that it actually would impact your behavior. And you just sat for 5 minutes scrolling and saw like a few things.
Yeah, I think of like the endless scroll as a problem, right? With social media, the endless scroll, and how it's probably hard for us to admit when we are teetering on the edge of addiction to that endless scroll, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are we trying to numb with that endless scroll? Because you're like, oh, it causes me to feel things. But I would think if you have that wide range of feelings when you're scrolling, again, this is not a thing I really do. I'm not an endless social media scroller. And so, but I can imagine it, for me, that it would almost numb me. Like I've experienced many
that's what I would argue.
Emotions.
Like
it's sort of like the news. You're like, oh, the world has endless problems.
Yeah.
You're almost you're numb to it because you're like, I'm powerless to change almost everything I hear on the news.
Yeah. So you could either, depending if you're like hugely empathetic or not, is like you'll leave either with a bunch of emotions, or like I more leave like, oh wow, that was just a lot. And then
or you're actually using the scroll of social media to numb things you're feeling IRL.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've got all these feels about this thing that's actually happening in my life, but if I scroll now, it's like a form of escapism then, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? Like you escape into a different world, or like your problems get numbed out or something. I don't know.
Yeah. What about the second part of the quote?
Well, I sort of hopped into that. So, it's this idea that the ways it's impacting us negatively. I think that's a great question. It's important for each of us to consider, in what ways am I negatively affected by social media? And we sort of bridged into that, thinking about the uniqueness of the individual, knowing yourself, how important that is to like know your own areas of weakness, know the things that you're going to idolize. If it's, man, I really have relationships in mind, whether it's a romantic relationship or friendships, probably the posts that are directed about those are going to tell you how you're lacking. If it's the way you look or your appearance, you're going to notice all the people who look great on social media, their most carefully curated photos, right? Or if you're like me, we never did family pictures, so I don't have all these cute pictures in leaves. Everyone is with their kids in white shirts and leaves.
Yeah, a lot of flannel, a lot of leaves.
Yeah,
orchards,
and so like
game changer.
orchards and trees, and like they're on paths, places families do not hang out with their children. Like like paths are things toddlers fall on. But we take our pictures there. And so we never did that. And so now I'm like, well, now my kids aren't going to have these awesome pictures to look back on, and they're going to think I'm terrible. I don't actually think that, but you know what I mean? Like you would, you'd be tempted to think that. So I think sorry, I just really derailed us. Knowing yourself in the unique way, that question's a fabulous question. That's where I broke it off the second time with, in what ways am I negatively impacted by social media?
I just want to jump in real quick with
please.
an actual example. So we take our little ones to the apple orchard, and most apple orchards, if you ever see them, are actually set up. There's a ton of different places all around them that are intentionally photogenic. Right? So it's like a huge chair, and then like a stack of pumpkins, and then like this cornfield, or it's all intentionally photogenic. And it hit me the first time we went to one with our kid. We have 2 kids, but we went with Chase when he was like 1. And we're taking all these photos everywhere, and I'm like, oh, this isn't, and everybody's doing the same thing. I'm like, this is for Instagram.
This is what they want us
This
to
is not for, like, we're not actually like enjoying our time here, because we're just trying to manicure every new photo at every new little photo op thing. Like, and it just hit me, like, everyone here is doing the same thing. We're just doing this. So it's a way that like social media actually changes the way we interact with the world. And that now I'm not going to the apple orchard for a quick bite of an apple with a worm in it that I'm like, oh no.
Or the hayride that your kids
or the hayride, or like
fall
actual
off of,
like
and
going
it's
the
be
slide.
Awesome. Yeah.
But I'm going to take cool photos and watch my little kid look adorable in a flannel, which is partly fun too. Don't hear me condemning it.
And
but
before social media, before social media, we didn't. Now people take photographers places with them. We went to a studio. Somebody took our kid's picture, took our family picture, and we left. Like obviously cameras are probably better, and there's like lighting's better, and I mean we've got this globe light right here to help us maybe look a little bit better. I don't know what it does. Maybe the cameras just pick us up better or whatever. But like, nobody took photographers with them. We didn't have cell phones. So there was, I had kids before I had a cell phone. So we didn't have phones with cameras. And so you guys are like, you're forced to think through like the Instagrammability of everything you do with your children, which I think would be a huge distraction from, I'm just going to be with my kids. And so, Paul, I think that's really a good little like...
That's discernment.
Piece of like, I'm here to, now we got to get a picture in front of the pumpkins. Now we got to get a picture in a big chair.
Right.
Like all of those things so that we can have all these memories rather than just having the experience and having the memory. And let's be real, your kids will not have active memories of what they're doing right now. They're too little. So they don't need a picture. There'll be so many pictures, they won't even look back on them.
Well, yeah, I've thought about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like Addie remembers stuff because she'll watch the videos on my phone.
Yeah. But it's not a real. She's remembering the video.
She's seen the video.
Right.
Yeah.
She's not actually remembering the experience, right?
So that leads us into the discernment comment she makes. Discernment is not avoidance of the world. It's the ability to go into the world and embrace the good while avoiding the bad. I think when we think, who should I listen to on social media? We're thinking about what is wise content. We're looking for voices that are going to help us embrace the good, namely the gospel. And avoid the bad, or help us discern ways that our minds tend to drift and to be influenced by things that are not what God would have for us. So I had a couple things that would be helpful for those that we're trying to listen to on social media. One is, do they have a demonstrated connection to God's word? Right? Like, is this person sharing a worldview with you of gospel centrality? Do they believe the scripture? Two, are they connected to a church? Because there's a lot of people out there that have influence online that just are kind of operating without connection to a church, and just kind of, so that there's be some level of accountability.
They're operating in isolation.
Yeah, right. And so therefore they're influencing
online.
you from a place of, they're not actually in a local body of believers. And so they don't have the accountability that they might have. Third one, I like to see in people that I'm looking to as wise voices on social media, is demonstrated humility. So not just trying to be impressive and seem like they know it all, but actually admitting weakness, brokenness, sin. Another one that I was thinking through is, how does what people online say align with those I trust in my real life? Which we kind of hit on, like bringing, like we should be talking through the things we're being influenced by with those in our actual lives, right? So that Naty hit on like this idea of fake community that we can have with an online community. But if we can't turn around and take ideas to people and instead we embrace those ideas in isolation, that might be a problem. And so that was another one is, have I talked through these ideas with someone I trust? And then the last one we actually throw into our systematic theology class in here. It kind of fits with what she talked about of a popular influencer has a new view and everyone seems to agree. As a general principle, and it doesn't always fit, but as a general principle, anytime the word new is used in theology, you want to practice some discernment there. Because typically, new, it's like when someone has discovered something that no one else in the church history for 2,000 years has seen before, that typically doesn't go well. So beware of the new or the isolated theology that someone has just discovered that no one ever saw before.
Is this where we talk about chronological snobbery?
We could,
That's a
yeah.
great, I don't know who coined that phrase, but it's not us, but somebody quoted
I
it.
don't know that.
Chronological snobbery is sort of like this idea that because we live further in time. Were you kidding? You actually don't?
I don't. I was looking up Paul for something.
Oh, okay. You're just being a turd.
Mm.
All right. Can we say turd on a podcast?
We just did.
We just did.
We plopped it out there.
Yeah,
All
chronological snobbery is this idea that because I live further in time, I'm more aware than people who lived 2,000 years ago, or I'm in a better position to interpret the Bible than like Augustine because there's 2,000 years between me and the Bible instead of.
And we just know more now.
We just know more. We're brighter.
We've got it way more figured out. We've made way more
understand
progress
culture.
than what other people used to think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, let's shift into the growing together conversation. So every week we try to, again, help imperfect leaders to grow. We acknowledge that we are imperfect leaders. So thinking about this one, keeping in mind it's not a journey. There's not necessarily a right answer. What are some practical ways that an imperfect leader can cultivate a healthier relationship with content online and with social media?
So I know that I can be easily influenced by social media. And I know I can like leave social media with like negative emotions, whether that's like envy or just probably envy and comparison are the ones that come up for me. And so I think it's like being aware, what are the feelings that you are experiencing when you leave social media? And then asking yourself like, okay, now that I'm off it, how do I feel? Sometimes I feel very happy because I just laughed at a ton of fail videos. And so that I'm like, well, okay, well, social media got me there. I'm coming back to watch more of those. But oftentimes do not want to go back to social media when I feel. So anyways, just trying to think through like, how do you feel when you leave? I've also like at different times in my life, I've had accountability with a friend about things I've been like tempted to buy after like scrolling through like, someone, have you guys heard of like, I don't even know what it stands for, but it's called LTK. Do you guys, so like someone that I follow has this like, you can go to this other website and it's like, these are all her Amazon picks. These are all her Target. This is all her like winter clothing that she would recommend. And sometimes I look at that and I'm like, stupid. Why am I doing this? Like, I don't need to know what she recommends.
It's like, get off Zillow if you're not shopping for a house.
Right. Like I don't need any of this stuff. And so I've like shared that with a friend before of like, hey, this is what I'm like tempted to do. And then they follow up with me and I'm like, crap, I don't like being asked to be held accountable, but it is good. So, and I think how Naty was talking about deception, like we don't know when we're deceived. I know that I'm like, I'm so much wiser than what these like algorithms and influencers are doing, but marketing is much smarter than we are. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for real. I was thinking a lot of the same things as you. So it was, know yourself. We talked about this a little bit, like know where your areas of weakness are, know when you're going to get the places that you're going to get sucked in. And then that is the value. I mean, you nailed it with the accountability. We need community. We need people in real life who we know love Jesus and can come alongside of us and honestly talk about the impact that social media or other media inputs are having on our lives. So it would be hard to make any change without support, let alone something as accessible as social media. Like you could always be on social media if you wanted. It's right there. It's on your phone. And so I temper that with the idea of even though I don't really do social media very much, it's not because I like think it's inherently evil. It's just it doesn't interest me very much. And so I am excited when Christians are in media and are making content and we're pushed to do things like this that hopefully, like point people towards Jesus and the gospel, right? And so I also don't want to give the impression that I'm saying, oh, just don't do social media like me and you won't have a problem with it. No, because it's a problem that I don't do social media. I don't always know what's going on. I'm depending on other people to tell me things, but also to have wisdom. So Again, I'm not saying lock out social media. I think Christians do need to engage in culture and do need to engage in the world and see how these things can be used for good tools, but also to understand as a real life impact on individuals and then come together in community. So I don't know, Paul, what was your growing together?
Yeah, I think just adding to what you guys have said, you're talking accountability, and Naty, really what you hit on is discernment. And discernment happens not in isolation as well. We have to talk with others about it. That's where the accountability piece comes in. The only thing I'd add is back in the self-examination side of things, ask, how is this shaping my values? How is this shaping what I think is true life? How is this shaping what I think love looks like? Because I think all those three kinds of questions really show you, oh, you know what? This is, maybe I'm being influenced in a way that is unhealthy and doesn't actually align with the good news of Jesus. And so let's move into then one takeaway. What's something you're taking away from this conversation as you think about social media in your life and wise content? And for me, I want to actually start talking with people in my life more about our intake. I just want to kind of hear what people are listening to, because there's probably great voices out there too that I'm not interacting with. But then also, have a little more accountability on what am I taking in, and is it healthy? Is it helpful? And just kind of more do that discerning in community.
Until a minute ago, mine was going to be, and if you fall prey to some of the stuff, it's okay. You are still loved. And I can fall prey to it. And so just remembering grace abounds as you are learning your limits or boundaries with social media. But I really did like your question of how is this shaping your values? Because I know of all the people that I can follow, it's the way that their home is curated, that shapes my home value. So,
yeah, for me, it's got this preparing for this has got me questioning whether or not I should maybe try a little bit harder on social media, which is funny. It's a funny takeaway. Try a little harder, Naty, on social media. But I could share more of my life with people. It would just be figuring out how to do that in a really uncurated way. Because I think that's the hard part about social media is it makes I don't want to put out this impression that I'm perfect, my family's perfect, my house is perfect, when none of that is actually true. But I also don't want to be one of those people who just blasts when I'm having a bad day. And so I think it's maybe thinking through some wise ways to use social media and how I could engage. I mean, my kid graduated, I didn't post. People are like, oh, things are happening in your life and I don't even know. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's because we don't actually hang out, and that's okay. You don't need to know all of that. But I'm like, maybe it is good. I don't know. I got to think about it more. It's challenging me.
Well, that wraps up our conversation for today, but we want to keep connecting with you. So thank you for listening to the podcast. And if you like what you heard, be sure to follow our show and leave a review. We love connecting with our listeners. So if you have questions, comments, or topic ideas, please email us ldi@hopecc.com. LDI is a ministry of Hope Community Church based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We seek to develop leaders in their biblical thinking, Christ-like character, and ministry skills for service both inside and outside the church. We do this through internships, classes, seminars, and retreats. If you're interested in learning more about our internships or other opportunities, visit ldi.hopecc.com or email ldi@hopecc.com. Have a great week.